The music stopped the instant the human touched her hand. Not because the musicians had been ordered to stop. Not because the woman had rejected him. The entire ballroom simply seemed to hold its breath. Elias Venn noticed none of it at first. He was too busy trying not to step on the feet of the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She was taller than him by a few inches, with pale blue skin that caught the golden light of the chandeliers, long black hair woven into intricate braids, pointed ears, amber gold eyes, and a crown-like band of ancient gold resting across her forehead. Her black and gold dress looked less like clothing and more like ceremonial armor disguised as elegance. Elias smiled awkwardly. "I don't know how your people dance," he whispered. "So you'll have to forgive me if I embarrass you." The woman's lips curved into the faintest smile. "You already have." Elias laughed. Then he noticed the expression on everyone else's face. Nobody was laughing. Dozens of aliens stood frozen around the enormous hall. Some stared at him with open horror. Others looked at the woman as if she had just pulled a weapon. Behind them, armored guards had gone completely rigid. One of them slowly lowered his hand toward his sidearm. Elias looked back at his dance partner. Did I break some kind of rule?" Her golden eyes remained fixed on his. "No," she said quietly. "You just did something no one in this empire has dared to do in 12 years. "What?" She stepped closer. "You asked me to dance." Elias glanced around again. "That doesn't seem worth shooting me over." For the first time, the woman's smile became genuine. "No," she whispered. "It isn't." Her hand tightened around his. "But they aren't afraid because you asked me to dance." The music suddenly began again. And somewhere behind Elias, a guard whispered a single word. "Empress." Elias didn't hear it. But the woman did. And her eyes changed. The ballroom of Vera Prime had been built to intimidate entire civilizations. Its ceiling disappeared into darkness hundreds of feet overhead, supported by silver columns carved with the history of the Solari Dominion. Floating lights drifted like stars above the polished black floor, while banners representing conquered worlds hung between enormous crystal windows. Elias had spent the last 6 months repairing atmospheric regulators on human diplomatic stations. He had no business being here. He wasn't an ambassador. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even supposed to be on the dance floor. He was an engineer assigned to the human delegation because the embassy's environmental systems had failed 3 days before the summit. His formal jacket had been borrowed from a diplomat twice his size. His boots were still dusty from the maintenance decks. And he had entered the ballroom because he was looking for food. Then he had seen her. She had been standing alone beside one of the crystal windows, watching the stars. No guards. No entourage. No obvious security. Just one mysterious alien woman who looked as though she belonged to another universe. Elias had assumed she was some minor noble trying to escape the diplomats. So he had walked over and asked her for a dance. Now, 5 minutes later, he was beginning to realize that assumption might have been the worst mistake of his life. "You're nervous," she said. "I'm trying to calculate how many ways I can die before dessert." She laughed softly. It was the first normal sound he had heard since touching her hand. "You are strange, human." "So I've been told." "What is your name?" "Elias." "Just Elias." "Usually." She studied him. "Then I am Lyra." He nodded. "Nice to meet you, Lyra." Something flickered across her face. "You truly don't know who I am." "No." "Interesting." Before Elias could ask what that meant, a man in silver ceremonial armor approached them. His face was long and angular, his eyes bright violet. He stopped 3 steps away. "My lady," he said carefully. Lyra didn't look at him. "Commander." The commander's eyes moved to Elias. "You should come with me." Elias frowned. "Why?" The commander looked genuinely confused by the question. "Because you are standing with her." "Yeah." "And you should not be." "Why?" The commander opened his mouth, then closed it. Lyra finally turned toward him. "He asked me to dance." "I know." "He did not threaten me." "I know." He did not insult me. I know. Then leave us. The commander hesitated. Your Majesty. Lyra's expression hardened. Leave. The commander bowed and retreated. Elias stared after him. Your Majesty. Lyra said nothing. Your royalty. Yes. How royal. She looked directly into his eyes. Enough. That answer should have been warning enough. Instead, Elias smiled. Okay. Well, Your Majesty, you dance surprisingly well. Her eyebrows lifted. You aren't afraid. I should be. Yes. Why? She looked toward the guards. Because every person in this room knows something you don't. Elias followed her gaze. Every guard was watching him. Not her. Him. That was when he felt the first cold sensation crawl down his spine. What do they know? Lyra's smile disappeared. That someone is trying to kill me. The music continued. The dancers continued moving. But Elias suddenly noticed that none of the guards were watching the crowd anymore. They were watching the windows, the balconies, the ceiling, the musicians, every exit. He looked back at Lyra. You knew. I came here expecting it. And you still came. I had to. Why? Because if I didn't come tonight, 23 million people would die tomorrow. Elias stopped dancing. Lyra's hand remained in his. What? She stepped closer. Keep moving. Why? Because the person watching me expects me to be standing still. Elias swallowed. He resumed the dance. For the next 30 seconds, neither spoke. Then Elias noticed something. A reflection. One of the crystal columns behind Lyra reflected a figure standing on the upper balcony. The figure wore ceremonial robes. But there was something wrong. The man's shadow didn't move with him. Elias stared. Lyra. Yes. Don't look behind you. Her eyes narrowed. Why? Because whoever is watching you is on the west balcony. She didn't react. How do you know? I saw his reflection. That made her pause. Human eyes cannot see that far. Mine can. That's impossible. Then somebody should tell my eyes. Lyra almost smiled. Then the lights went out. The ballroom vanished into darkness. A sharp crack split the air. Something struck the floor where Lyra's head had been a fraction of a second earlier. Elias moved without thinking. He grabbed her waist and pulled her down. A second projectile cut through the darkness above them. People screamed. Guards shouted. Weapons came alive with blue-white light. Elias rolled behind a marble platform with Lyra beside him. You okay? She stared at him. Yes. Good. You saw the shot before it came. No. What? I saw the assassin. Lyra's expression changed. Way. Elias pointed toward the balcony. Moving left. 3 guards fired. The balcony exploded in sparks. But the figure was already gone. The emergency lights came on. The ballroom was chaos. Nobles crouched behind tables. Security units flooded the entrances. The musicians had abandoned their instruments. Elias looked at Lyra. She wasn't frightened. She was furious. A dozen armored soldiers rushed toward them. The silver-armored commander dropped to one knee. Your Majesty. Elias froze. Lyra slowly stood. Enough. The entire room became silent. The commander lowered his head. The Empress is unharmed. Elias stared at Lyra. The woman he'd just asked to dance looked at him. He finally understood. She wasn't a noble. She wasn't a princess. She wasn't some mysterious woman hiding from diplomats. She was Soraya Varel, Empress of the Solari Dominion. The woman whose portrait appeared on every military transmission across half the galaxy. The woman humans had heard about in news reports. The ruler who had ended the Karen War by personally entering the enemy capital. The commander of the largest fleet in known space. The woman soldiers on 27 worlds called the Ash Empress. Elias slowly pointed at himself. You're the Empress. Yes. I asked the Empress to dance. Yes. In front of everyone. Yes. And nobody stopped me. Her expression softened. They wanted to. Elias looked around. I think I'm going to be sick. For the first time that night, Soraya laughed. Then her expression became serious. Elias, I need you to answer one question. What? How did you see the assassin? I already told you. No. She stepped closer. How did you know where the shot was coming from before my guards did? Elias hesitated. Because your guards were watching the wrong things. The commander stiffened. Soraya noticed. Explain. Elias looked toward the ceiling. You've built your security around weapons. The commander frowned. We have the finest security force in the Dominion. I believe you. Then what is the problem? You're protecting the Empress from people. Elias pointed toward the windows. I'm protecting her from systems. The room went quiet again. He walked toward the nearest crystal window. The assassin didn't need to enter the palace. He touched the glass. He used the building. The commander stared. Impossible. Elias pointed toward a maintenance junction hidden behind decorative plating. Your ventilation system has access conduits running through the walls. Yes. Those conduits are connected to the thermal regulation grid. Yes. And the thermal grid is synchronized with the palace's security sensors. The commander's expression changed. Elias nodded. Your assassin didn't bypass your security. He used it. Soraya looked toward the guards. Find the maintenance network. They moved immediately. Elias watched them disappear. Then he noticed Soraya studying him again. What? He asked. You are not an ordinary engineer. I am. No. She walked toward him. My intelligence service spent years studying humanity. That sounds flattering. It wasn't. She stopped inches away. Your species was considered dangerous because you survived environments that should have killed you. Elias shrugged. We're stubborn. No. Her eyes remained locked on his. You improvise. That word hung between them. Then the palace shook. A deep explosion rolled through the floor. Emergency alarms screamed. Soraya turned. The commander rushed toward them. Your Majesty, the outer defense ring has been breached. How many ships? Unknown. Identify them. We can't. Another explosion rocked the palace. Elias looked toward the windows. Far beyond the city, the stars were moving. Not stars. Ships. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. Soraya's face hardened. The Dominion fleet. The commander shook his head. Every fleet channel is down. Elias looked at the holographic tactical display. Something was wrong. The enemy wasn't attacking the palace. They were attacking the communication satellites. That's not an invasion, Elias said. Soraya looked at him. What? They don't want the capital. Then what do they want? Elias pointed at the orbital map. They want everyone outside this system to think the capital has fallen. Soraya stared at the display. Then understanding spread across her face. Decapitation. They're cutting the head off the Dominion. The commander turned pale. If the other systems believe you are dead, half the governors will surrender. And the other half will fight each other, Soraya said. Elias nodded. Exactly. The Empress looked at him. You understand warfare. Not really. You just described the enemy's entire strategy. I understand systems. What's the difference? Elias looked at the chaos outside. Not much. The palace defenses began firing. The night sky filled with streaks of energy. Soraya turned to her commander. Get the surviving fleet to the northern gate. The northern gate is controlled by the enemy. Then take it back. The commander bowed. He turned to leave. Elias grabbed his arm. Wait. The commander glared. You have no authority here. Elias pointed at the tactical display. Your fleet can't reach the northern gate. Why? Because they expect you to go there. He enlarged the map. Look. 3 corridors glowed red. The enemy is herding you. The commander stared. They want us to use this route. Yes. Why? Elias zoomed further in. Because this corridor passes through the planet's magnetic shadow. Soraya understood. They're hiding their fleet there. Exactly. The commander shook his head. We cannot abandon the northern gate. Don't. Elias looked at Soraya. Use the southern corridor. That corridor is blocked. By what? Debris. Elias smiled. Then clear it. How? Your cargo ships. The commander looked offended. We need warships. No. Elias pointed toward the fleet inventory. You need engines. He began giving orders. Not because he was a military officer. Not because anyone had appointed him. But because every time someone objected, he had an answer. Move civilian freighters. Shut down 3 defense satellites. Overload the southern relay. Use the debris field as a screen. Let the enemy believe the fleet was retreating. Then reverse the engines at the last possible moment. It was reckless. It was ugly. It was completely unlike Solari military doctrine. And it worked. The hidden enemy fleet emerged exactly where Elias predicted. But instead of finding the Solari fleet, they found empty space. Then the civilian freighters appeared behind them. Hundreds of engines ignited. The debris field became a storm. Enemy ships crashed into fragments of their own hidden position. The Solari fleet struck from the opposite direction. Within 8 minutes, the ambush had become a massacre. Soraya watched the tactical display in silence. How did you know? Elias rubbed his forehead. I didn't. She turned toward him. You didn't. I guessed. The commander stared. You gambled the Empress's life on a guess. Elias shook his head. No. He looked at the commander. I gambled on what the enemy would do. Soraya's expression changed. That was the moment she understood why humans frightened the oldest military civilizations. Humans did not need certainty. They needed enough information to act. The battle continued for another hour. Then the enemy flagship emerged. Massive, black, nearly invisible against the stars. Every Solari weapon turned toward it. Soraya stepped toward the command platform. Open a channel. The enemy commander appeared. His face was scarred. He smiled when he saw her. Empress. You failed. No. His smile widened. You survived. Elias felt something cold in his stomach. Soraya noticed. What? Elias stared at the flagship. That's not their objective. The enemy commander laughed. You are very clever, human. Soraya's eyes narrowed. How do you know his language? Elias didn't answer. The enemy commander looked directly at him. Because we have been studying you too. The transmission ended. A new signal appeared. Then another. Then hundreds. Every human colony in the region began receiving the same message. Coordinates. Names. Images. Military records. Human ships. Human commanders. Human weaknesses. The enemy hadn't come to conquer the Solari Dominion. They had come to expose humanity. Because humans had been hiding behind the Dominion Treaty for years. And the enemy had finally discovered the truth. Humanity wasn't a weak young species protected by the Solari. Humanity had been building. Quietly. Patiently. Learning. Adapting. Waiting. Elias looked at Soraya. You knew. She didn't deny it. What? That humans have been preparing. For what? Soraya's eyes softened. For the day someone came looking for you. Elias understood. The dance. The assassination. The invasion. It had all been connected. The enemy hadn't discovered the human weakness. They had discovered the human alliance. Soraya stepped closer. Elias, there is something I never told you. What? You weren't chosen randomly to repair our embassy. He stared at her. What do you mean? You were selected. By whom? Me. Elias's face went still. You knew who I was. Yes. Then why did you let me walk into the ballroom? Because I wanted to know what kind of human you were when nobody was watching. Elias laughed once. So this entire night was a test? No. Soraya looked toward the burning sky. It became something much more dangerous. The enemy flagship began charging its primary weapon. Every warning system screamed. The weapon wasn't aimed at the palace. It was aimed at the planet. Soraya's commander shouted, Your Majesty, we cannot stop that weapon. Elias stared at the power readings, then at the palace systems, then at the ancient energy grid beneath the city. Maybe you can. Soraya turned. What? The palace. This palace. It isn't just a palace. He remembered the thermal systems, the security grid, the maintenance network, the old infrastructure beneath the city. It's a reactor. Soraya's eyes widened. An ancient planetary shield. Yes. But it hasn't functioned for centuries. Elias smiled. That's because nobody tried to turn it on. He ran. Soraya followed. The commander shouted after them. They descended through maintenance tunnels beneath the palace, past ancient machines covered in dust. Elias reached the central control chamber. There was no modern interface. No digital panel. Only a massive mechanical structure with thousands of physical connections. Soraya stared. Can you activate it? Elias looked at the system. No. Her face fell. Then he smiled. But I can repair it. For the next 3 minutes, Elias worked. He bypassed dead circuits, rewired ancient conductors, used his own belt as a grounding cable, burned his hands, nearly died twice. Soraya refused to leave him. Finally, the system came alive. Above them, the entire planet glowed. A transparent shield expanded into orbit. The enemy's weapon fired. The beam struck the shield. The planet shook, but it held. The enemy flagship attempted to fire again. Elias looked at the tactical display. Now. Soraya understood. She opened every fleet channel. Human forces. Nothing happened. Then thousands of ships dropped out of hyperspace. Not Solari. Human. Old cargo ships. Mining vessels. Research craft. Colony transports. Civilian ships. Ships that had never been designed for war. They arrived from every direction. The enemy commander stared at the display. What is this? Soraya smiled. Humanity. The human ships didn't have better weapons. They didn't have stronger armor. They didn't have faster engines. They simply did something the enemy hadn't expected. They stopped fighting like a fleet. They fought like a network. Cargo ships became decoys. Mining vessels created artificial debris fields. Research ships jammed enemy targeting. Civilian transports moved wounded soldiers. Small ships attacked engines instead of weapons. Nothing was elegant. Nothing followed military doctrine. But every ship adapted. The enemy couldn't predict them. Within 20 minutes, the black flagship was surrounded. Its weapons were disabled. Its engines were damaged. Its shields were failing. Soraya opened a channel. The enemy commander appeared again. His confidence was gone. You were hiding this. Soraya shook her head. No. She looked at Elias. He was hiding it. The enemy commander stared at the human. Who are you? Elias glanced at Soraya. She smiled. Apparently, she said, he is the man who asked me to dance. Elias sighed. That is going to follow me forever, isn't it? Yes. The enemy commander looked confused. You risked an empire for a human engineer. Soraya's eyes hardened. No. She looked toward the thousands of human ships filling the sky. I risked an empire because I finally understood what humanity was. The transmission ended. The enemy surrendered 11 minutes later. The war was over before sunrise. When the ballroom was repaired 2 days later, the same musicians returned. The same crystal lights floated above the floor. The same banners hung from the ceiling. But the atmosphere had changed. Elias stood near the entrance wearing a new black formal jacket. This time, it actually fit. Soraya approached him. No crown, no guards, no armor. Just the same gold band across her forehead and the same amber eyes. "You're avoiding me," she said. "I've been busy." "Liar." "Yes." She smiled. "Do you remember the first thing you said to me?" Elias thought. "I asked you to dance." "No." She stepped closer. "You told me you were afraid of embarrassing me." Elias laughed. "That seems like a lifetime ago." "It was 4 days ago." "Feels longer." The music began. Soraya held out her hand. Elias looked at it. "Should I ask?" She shook her head. "This time, I am asking you." He took her hand. Around them, hundreds of diplomats watched. Some smiled. Some whispered. Nobody reached for a weapon. They began to dance. Elias glanced at the crowd. "You know, I still don't understand why everyone was so terrified when I first asked you." Soraya looked up at him. "Because you were the first person in 12 years to speak to me like I was simply a woman." "That doesn't sound terrifying." "It was." "Why?" Her smile faded into something softer. "Because emperors spend their lives surrounded by people who are afraid of them." She looked toward the stars. "And sometimes they forget what it feels like to be seen." Elias was quiet. Then he smiled. "Well, I saw you." "Yes. And I still think you dance badly." She stared at him. The Empress of the Solari Dominion. The woman who had commanded fleets. The ruler who had terrified enemy generals. The legend called the Ash Empress. She laughed. "Not like an empress. Not like a soldier. Like a woman." And across the galaxy, the story of that night spread. Some told it as the night an arrogant human embarrassed the most powerful woman in the Dominion. Others called it the beginning of a legendary alliance. Military historians would later study the battle and spend decades trying to understand how an inferior human fleet had defeated a superior enemy force. But the Solari remembered something simpler. They remembered the moment the music stopped. They remembered the human who didn't know he was dancing with an empress. And they remembered what happened when the galaxy finally discovered the truth about humanity. Humans had never been the strongest species in the stars. They had never been the fastest. They had never possessed the oldest technology. They simply had something the galaxy had spent 1,000 years underestimating. They could walk into a room without knowing who was watching. They could face an impossible problem without knowing the answer.